Hey guys and gals, it's me, George, the Shade Tree Fix-It Man, and I'm just kind of getting warmed up. I got my little electric heater going down on my feet to get them roasty toasty again after being outside plowing the snow and blowing the snow. But I seen a couple of videos lately. One was done by Cutworm, Stevie Ray Rains, and he was telling about the first car he ever owned. And then I saw one last night, I think it was, with H.O. Motorsports, and he was telling about the first car that he ever owned. And I thought, maybe you guys would be interested in hearing a story about the first car I ever owned. My first car was a 1954 Chevy Delray two-door sedan. And of course, it was a six-cylinder. That's all they had in 1954 for Chevrolet. No V8s yet, not till the next year, 1955. But, yep, my dad took me to the used car lot in the next town over from where we lived, Chevrolet dealership. And we were looking for a car. I only had $100 to spend, and the guy took us out on the back of their lot, and they had this nice 54 Chevy Delray, like I told you, and it had been traded in by an older gentleman, so it was all intact, and it wasn't in bad shape. It had some rust on the rocker panels, which is not unusual in Massachusetts. And but we got it, and I drove it home, and I had a great time with it. And but I was visiting my friend down in Rhode Island this one weekend, and he says, this thing's just a six-banger. I bet you can't burn rubber with it. I said, no, I can't. It's only a Power Glide after all, 2-speed automatic. And I said, but wait a minute. And there were three of us in the car, and they're egging me on. And I revved it up, and I dropped it into reverse. And it went, bang! And I didn't have reverse anymore. So for the next couple of weeks, every place I went, I had to make sure I was parked so I didn't have to back up. Or if I did, I parked on a hill enough so that I could roll backwards and get out of the parking space. That had got old real quick. And I always wanted to stick anyway. I didn't want an automatic transmission. Automatic transmissions ain't cool, man. So I proceeded to go to the junkyard. And I went to the junkyard, and they had a 54 Chevy there. And I went, and I think I paid all of $25. No, I didn't pay that much. $15 I paid. I got a transmission. I got a bell housing, a flywheel, a clutch and pressure plate, throw-out bearing, all the linkage, all the way up and including the pedal assembly for my 54 Chevy. Well, I got to tell you, I was first going to try and take the transmission out underneath the car, just jacking it up a little bit with a bumper jack, But I found that there was not enough room under there to work. And any of you know about them old torque converter, Power Glides, the original ones, they were cast iron, not aluminum like your modern day transmissions. They had a cast iron case, and them puppies was big and heavy. And I was doing this all by myself. And you got to remember, I was let's see, that was before my senior year in high school. This was the summer of my junior year. In fact, I think I bought it in the spring before school was out. Anyway, I'm getting off of my story. I brought all of them parts home, and I took them all out myself. They didn't take them out for me. I pulled all of those parts, and that was a good thing because I was able to save all the nuts and bolts, and it gave me experience in knowing where the different things fit in. So I went home and I pulled the motor and transmission together out of my car. Well, my sisters and my father all decided that I'd never get it back together again. Once I get that motor out of there, you'll never get that thing back together again. And my dad was in a hurry for me to get it out of the barn because that's where he kept his work truck. Well, that only made me more determined than ever to get the job done. And I did. It took me about a week, I think, because I was going to school still. Took me about a week, and I got it all back together. And no, I didn't put on a column shift. I would have had to change a lot more linkage. I went down to Benny's, which is an auto store, a glorified hardware and department store, just a small one downtown of my hometown of Middleborough, Massachusetts. And I bought me a shifter. And let's see, what brand was that shifter? It wasn't a Hurst. Oh no, this was not a Hurst. This is a generic cheapo, really cheapo. Yeah. Well, I put that floor shift in it, and of course to cut the hole in the floor I had to use a cold chisel. I started the one hole with a drill, and then I used a cold chisel to punch that thing out. And if I recall correctly, the hole was too big after I got done, so that the boot didn't quite cover that came with it. So I ended up having to buy another boot a little later on that was bigger, that would cover that whole hole that I punched in the floor. But I got it in there and I got it working, and I proceeded to learn how to power shift. And well, the thing was, like I said, it was a Mickey Mouse shifter, and the bolts were always loosening up, and the shifter would get sloppy and I'd have to crawl underneath there. And I got so good at power shifting that I ended up blowing a transmission about every 2 weeks. And I got so that I could change that transmission in about half an hour. And you think that's not doing something? Well, you got to remember that on these they had a torque tube drive shaft. It was not an open drive like we have on modern day cars. It was a torque tube, very similar to the old Fords back in the day. But Chevrolet was the same way right up until 54. 55 was the first year they changed when they went to V8. They also went to an open drive shaft. So theoretically, you had to loosen the rear end and slide it back a little bit on the springs to get enough clearance to pull that transmission back. Well, I got it figured out that I could pry that thing down and get it out of the way enough that I didn't have to unbolt the U-bolts in the back. And because I got to the point of changing them so often, I was only putting 3 bolts back into the bell housing instead of 4. And yeah. And well, in those days, the hot setup was to take your front bumper off of your car, and that's what I did. I took the front bumper off. And this car was baby blue with a white top and flat black primer spots over the rust on the rocker panels and the lower front fender corner. And oh yeah, I had a lot of great times in that car. A lot of great times. Learned a lot about auto mechanics. Well, it finally came to the time where I got tired of constantly having to change transmissions in that thing. And I had worked over the summer, and I had the opportunity to buy another car. And my second car was a 1957 Chevy convertible that already had a 58 Chevy V8 in it. It was original V8 car. Power pack car, had the gold V's on it. That's a story for another video in another time. So I thought you might enjoy that. Thanks for watching. Hope you're all staying warm and dry. Until next time, bye now.